Okay, ladies and gents, after 4 days of trying, I finally got the crankshaft bolt out. This is the 2013 Honda Accord Sport. We tried using a breaker bar method, would not work. We tried using a starter bump method, will not work. So we even tried heating it up, and it still wouldn't come out. What I ultimately did, as you can see, I drilled a hole right down it, down the middle of the crankshaft bolt. And as you can tell, the hole kind of went a little bit sideways. So what it ended up doing was piercing on the side. Oops, let's see if I could. Piercing through the side of the actual bolt just enough to where I grazed the crankshaft threads slightly, and while I was drilling, I was squirting a lubricant in it. And I guess since it breached on the side like that, it spread that lubricant all the way around the threads, the way you see it done right here. And I took an impact and that sucker came right out. It spun all the way out. I didn't damage the threads on the crank, in case you guys are wondering. I stuck this bolt back in it threaded in perfectly. So we got another crankshaft bolt on order. So we're going to continue the videos on doing the timing chain assembly for this Honda Accord Sport. I went ahead and already cleaned up my mess. Got all the metal shavings out, what I could. And we're going to start this assembling process. So first we're going to start from the top. As you can see from the last video, we got the valve cover assembly off. Ignition coils, all that good stuff. I labeled everything in bags, and that's what I'm still going to continue to do, is label everything. So next we're going to take this motor mount out. We're going to get a jack under it and take the pressure off that motor mount, and then we're going to take the serpentine belt off along with the alternator and some pulleys so that the timing cover can slide straight forward. And it looks to me I might have to take that VVT solenoid assembly off, because with those on there my timing cover won't be able to slide all the way forward. So we're also going to take those up, and we're going to stick a tray on the bottom to catch any oil that drips. I've already drained it, so the drain plug's back in it, and we'll go from there. So we're going to set it up the jack underneath the car so we can get this motor mount assembly out first. Okay, we got the motor mount assembly out. As you can see, it was 3 bolts here, 2 bolts there. I believe they were all, let me check real quick. They were all 17 millimeter. So you could just impact those off. I don't have an impact, I'm doing everything by hand. So 17 millimeter bolts were all those motor mount bolts. Next, we're going to do the tension. Take the tension off the serpentine belt so we get the belt off. And I'll let you know what size that serpentine belt fitting is. Okay, the fitting down there that has for the tensioner, it's a 17 millimeter. And also, you pull towards the front of the car, this direction. I almost went that way, and that would actually break it. I've done it before. So you got to kind of test the belt tension before you, in either direction before you start putting some power behind it. So I went ahead and got the belt off. So we're just going to go ahead and get it unraveled from there and move on to taking the alternator off. Okay, I just found out that the tensioner for the serpentine belt, which is this whole piece, is in front of the bottom bolt to the alternator. So you got to remove the tensioner first. I just took off the bottom bolt at the bottom where the little shock absorber is, and that's a 12 millimeter. Now the next piece is an Allen wrench, and I'll tell you what size that is. Okay, I removed the serpentine belt tensioner assembly. I just wanted you to see outside the car what it looks like. Right here is where the 12 millimeter bolt would have went. This is a See if you can see that. Oops. 8mm. Dang it, my mind's froze. 8mm Allen wrench socket. And there's the actual socket. And just so that you can see the bolt, it is an Allen wrench and not a Torx bit. Okay, I'm just going to label my bolts and we'll move on to getting the rest of the alternator off. Okay, we got the alternator out. Here's a side view of the alternator. Here's the longer bolt that goes through the top. Be careful that nut that's in the back isn't embedded in the alternator. It could fall out. So just be careful as you're unscrewing it out. You keep it in there with your hand. That way once you get the alternator out, you can screw it back together and leave that nut in there. The bottom one is also 14mm. They're both 14s. And this is just a side shot of what the alternator looks like. And yeah, and don't forget from my previous video to disconnect all the wiring first, and along with the battery. Okay, so that's a shot of the alternator. Moving on to the next. I was looking at to see if the water pump pulley was in the way of the timing cover, and it is not, so we're leaving the water pump on. Next, we're going to slide out that harmonic balancer. And keep in mind the oil's already drained out of it, so nothing should come out. And we'll move on to the next stage. So I decided the next stage is going to be taking out that VVT solenoid. What I'm going to do is use a 10mm ratchet wrench. All those bolts look 10mm. So I'm going to stick a pan underneath it, so in case any oil drips out of it, I can catch it with my pan, and we'll remove that next. Okay, as you can see, got the solenoids out of the way. There's only 3 10mm bolts holding it. Here's what it looks like from the back. Here, I'm gonna put it over here. From the back, here's the position of those bolts. Just wanted to make a special tip. Before you reinstall this, change this gasket. That way, because I'm going to show you what it looks like when the gasket's removed. See how you can't really see through the screen? It's got some stuff built up onto it. You don't want to stop the flow of the motor oil to get to the solenoids so they can advance and retard your VVT actuator. Oops. Okay, so we're going to move this out of the way. Oh, let me show you from front view. If you looked at it from the front view, this is how it's positioned, and those are the 3 positions of the bolts. So it's 3 bolts and it'll pop right off. Okay, we're underneath the car now where the harmonic balancer is. Boy, this thing was such a pain to get off. Took 4 days and 6 different methods. We used the jack stand with the Y and a bunch of extension method with a big breaker bar and a cheater bar on that. We heated it up and tried the starter bunt method. That didn't work. Then we heated it up and tried the impact method. That didn't work. And finally I had to just drill it out. There's 2 other methods, but they're slipped my mind at the time. And well, let's just get this sucker out. I'm sure it's supposed to slip out because there's no anchor points to pull it. So let me see if I can get it out real quick. So yes, I was correct. It slips right out. And with that heating up method, I'm pretty sure this seal is warped. So we're going to change that once we got the timing cover off. And you can see in there that the threads are not damaged. Nice and clean. So we do have a Woodruff key where it should go here. That's on the, yeah, that's on the balancer right there. So do not lose your Woodruff key. And Next, I'm gonna get these 3 10mm oil pan bolts off because they are attached to the bottom part of the timing cover. So we're gonna go ahead and do that next. What did I get myself into? Alright, hold on a second. Okay, we went ahead and removed these 3 10mm bolts. Also moved 3 lower cover bolts. 1, 2, 3, and I also took off 1, 2, 3 timing chain tensioner cover bolts. That's this right here. I wasn't really sure what it was, so I took it off, and now I see it's the timing chain tensioner. So I'm not going to pull that off, I don't think, because it's not attached to the cover. I want it to keep tension when the cover comes off, so that I can set everything up top dead center and in time, so that I take it off exactly the way I put it on. So I'm going to go ahead and label my bolts. This is the end of this part of the video. We shall continue with part 4 here in a bit. This is part 3, and we'll go on from there.